This is a normal person's arm compared to a Mr. Olympia arm. We'll do it to this camera right here. Your arm's going to eat my arm. Oh, no, you didn't need to zoom in. Come on. Okay, before we dive into this amazing conversation with Jay Cutler, I'm just curious. Have you subscribed to my other YouTube channel, CVV Clips, yet? We take the best, most interesting clips from these full-length interviews and we put them on the CVV Clips channel. So if you're subscribed on the main channel, it'd be so great if you could join us there as well. So a big thank you in advance for subscribing to CVV Clips, and a big thank you to Ridge for not only sponsoring this video, but for making such badass wallets, because this was my old wallet and I've taken everything out, but look at the size of that in comparison to my Ridge wallet, right? I just love how it's light, it's sleek, it's compact, it fits so perfectly into your front pocket, so you're not like trying to figure out how do I sit with this. So it holds up to 12 cards, plus you got room for cash on the back there. And there's over 30 different colors and styles to choose from. This one that I've been showing you is called Forged Ash, and I know you're gonna ask, how do you get your cards out of there? It's as simple as this. You just push it out, that's it. And they've got over 40,000 5-star reviews. And normally the code CVV gets you 10% off, but because it's the holidays and because this makes such a great gift, they bumped that up to 15% off between now and December 7th. So go to ridge.com/CVV or just use the code CVV and you'll get 15% off your brand new Ridge wallet with free worldwide shipping and returns. ridge.com/CVV. Look at the size of this man. Jay Cutler, thanks so much for coming by.
Man, we made it. I know it's been, we had a little delay, but it was good.
No, I appreciate you coming by. I also want to apologize because I felt like every 5 feet as you were walking towards the studio, you kept getting stopped by people.
It's always honorable to, be in my city and be respected like that. That's why I made Vegas my home over 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, and also you stand out, right? You're still, even though you're not competing anymore, you stand out. You're huge.
Yeah, it's funny when I walked in, you were like, man, size of you, and I'm thinking, man, if people saw me, when I was actually on top and 60, 70 pounds bigger, that's when I was really noticeable. But it seems like, yes, I'm still getting stopped.
Well, yeah.
More recognizable for the face, I think.
Well, and the hair.
Yeah,
the hair for sure.
Yeah.
I remember watching your documentary years ago, and you were talking about how you couldn't sit on a plane without buying 2 seats.
Yeah, 2 seats or, some of the business class. I mean, some of those were a little tighter, but I think there's one of my YouTube videos that's very famous online, and it was me trying to fit on a commuter jet. And it was my back was sticking halfway out the aisle, and I was in an aisle seat.
Man, what do you weigh right now?
I weigh about 230.
That's
at my
still
peak,
a lot.
At my peak, I was over 300.
And then you would step on stage at what, 270?
Yeah, 260 was probably. I've been 270. I've been 250. I've been all over the place, but I think my best is in the mid 250s.
So you were your weight began with a 3 at one point. In the off season.
310. Yeah.
Man, that's a lot.
A lot of eating, a lot of training, a lot of years. That was towards the end of my career. Of course, you don't start off like that, but I pretty much right out of the gate when I started, I reached almost 240, as a teenager, and then, cut down to about 215, and then, I gained pretty much right up to 260, 270 off season, and
yeah,
that's the thing with bodybuilding is we transition up in weight, and then we deplete calories and body fat in order to get down to a weight that you see where everything shows, all the definition, and that's a very limited time, right? So you compete on a day, and it's kind of like the Olympics, you train for that one event, and that's it.
And the thing that people don't talk about a lot is you might look great on stage, you probably don't feel very great.
No, especially with the dehydration, I think that's the hardest part. So we deplete water. I was probably a 2.5 gallon a day drinker until the last 2 or 3 days before competition, where I totally cut water down to basically very minimal. and even 0 for the last 24 hours,
Wow.
which makes you feel very delirious.
I bet. Yeah. If we take this way back, Jay, there's a big difference between lifting weights and bodybuilding. Where did you cross that threshold from just being a guy who was active and fit and going, I think I might be onto something here?
It's a little different how I started. I was interested in it. At 12 years old, I saw books, and I started, working out just in high school. Like for football, I was a football player, and we had challenges at school, and everyone wanted to see how much they bench pressed, right?
Yeah.
I was always the strongest kid, and I grew up doing concrete. My family business does concrete. My brother's still in that business back in Massachusetts, so we did concrete basements and floors and that kind of stuff. So on the weekends and school vacations, that's what I would do. So I had a very developed physique just from that alone. So when I toyed with the weights, it just gave me an all-around better look, and I was naturally lean. So when I graduated high school, I graduated at 200 pounds, and, not a lot of my family attended college. My older sister, who is a year older than me, is the only other one. I have, 3 brothers, 3 sisters. So I wanted to go to college, and at the time I was pursuing criminal justice. And I think really the reason I wanted to go to college is I didn't want to have to work in the concrete business, because it was kind of like, this is going to be yours someday.
Yeah.
And I knew there had to be a better way. I did it from 11 to 18, pretty much like I said, all the time. And I didn't enjoy it. And it was hard working the winters and then the hot summers and in the rain. And, it's a family business. You don't clock 8 hours a day, right? It's like 14, 15, 16-hour days.
Yeah.
Sometimes working under headlights. So, I actually, started college in the fall of 91. And that's the year I graduated high school. And that's when I started training at a Gold's Gym. I joined the gym on my 18th birthday.
And this is in California?
No, it's in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
And, I found the time in the gym. I would train from 8 to 10 at night because I'd have class during the day. And I found that as like a huge stress relief for me because, remember, my parents and my brothers were like pulling me towards the business. And they were like, well, you can go to college, but you'll come back to this, right? But I was like, man, I don't really want to do that. And I wasn't really sure I wanted to be a police officer doing my criminal justice degree either. But when I was in the gym, I didn't think about that stuff. And I'd spend that 2 hours a night in the gym, and my body just became alive. Not only motivated by, the weights going up, but the arms started to get bigger, and the legs really exploded quickly. I always had stocky legs, but when I got under a squat bar, they grew like crazy, and I'd got recognition for that. And I think anyone that, is that at that age and, is athletic and, has people looking at you, you're a little driven by ego somewhat. And although I wasn't the guy that got picked on in high school, I was the guy that was popular, but still unsure of what I wanted to do. And as soon as I started having success in the gym, I got coaxed into competing. It was never really a thought. And I did well. I placed second at my first contest, and I was hooked.
Did you think at this point that you could actually make enough money to make a living from it?
I picked up books, and I saw pictures of guys in front of Ferraris and hot girls on the beach and Cover Muscle and Fitness. And I'm like, man, those guys must be it. They live in California. Of course, that was a dream. And then I thought, okay, they're very wealthy. And I thought, okay, there's money to be made in this. And, little did I realize, like, there was only few and far that made that kind of money in order to have that successful lifestyle. So as I progressed, I didn't really care about the money. I just wanted to look good and I feel good. And like I said, when I lost myself in the weights, there was like no stress of life.
Yeah.
And, next, the stage, I loved, the cheers, and I loved the lights, and, getting up there and showcasing what I worked so hard for in the gym. And, I became the best teenager in the country at 19 after basically, just under 2 years of training. So that kind of told the story, right?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I got people, you could get sponsored, this and that. And, you're a local hero too. I was living in Worcester, Massachusetts, and people were, comping me things and food and that kind of stuff. And, but my dream was to head west. That's what all of us wanted to do. And I was eventually able to do that.
Is it because of the idea that it's warmer out west? Or is that why all the bodybuilders are in California?
I mean, listen, you saw the Schwarzenegger story,
course.
when he came to the Gold's Gym.
Yep.
And it's kind of very similar to my story because I actually met Joe Weider when I was 22 years old. And that's the guy that brought Schwarzenegger from Austria. And he took me under his wing and he's like, I want you to move to California. And he owned Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine at the time. And this is prior to social media. So this was the only outlet for bodybuilding. And he hosted the Mr. Olympia, like he owned the show. So I was just under the impression like, okay, if this guy has interest in me, wants to put me on the cover of magazines. I was on my first Muscle and Fitness when I was 21 years old. I said, man, I have something.
Yeah. But you must also, you're starting to get this at an early age. You must be so hungry for what's next and wanting more.
Yeah, I mean, when you're on the magazine cover and your mom's in the grocery store, because it was in every grocery aisle, so every checkout counter had Muscle and Fitness.
Yeah.
And here I was standing here with a hot blonde girl. It was cool, That was like, I made it.
Yeah.
Because now it didn't matter how much money you made, even though I really wasn't making anything. I didn't even get paid for the cover. Like, it opened up so many avenues for me. And I got fan mail from all over the world. Back then, we used to get letters in P.O. Box, and we'd handwrite letters or type letters to fans. And I started like a small mail order business. And I started selling like T-shirt. I had one T-shirt, and it had like 8x10 pictures, and I would sign. And I would do like, autograph on paper or whatever, and I would have a P.O. Box, and they'd send checks or money orders to that P.O. Box. And it was like, if I made $400 in a week, that was like, I was rich. I mean, remember, this is 1993, 94.
And was that the only money you were making? Were you making any money from bodybuilding?
I was working, I was working a job, but my dream was to be sponsored by Joe Weider.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that after 22 years old.
What was the job you were working?
I was doing golf course maintenance. I worked as a line cook, believe it or not. And I worked security.
The line cook's good because you got to eat a lot.
Oh
of
yeah,
food.
I was getting deals on the packed chicken and all the eggs and everything. I mean, I'd buy 30 dozen eggs at a time, and my whole refrigerator would be full because I was eating 20 egg whites for breakfast every day.
30 dozen eggs.
Yes.
Wow. Was it 10,000 calories?
No, I ate about between 5 and 6 probably. Probably, I think people exaggerate the calories, but 10,000 clean calories is very hard to get.
Sure.
I think people love to exaggerate that, but I would buy a whole cow at a time. I'd buy 140 pounds of chicken at a time. I had a local butcher there. That's what's nice about living in Massachusetts that we lack here is, I was able to walk to a butcher shop. My brother actually raises cattle, but I would go to a local butcher, and I literally would have the cow hanging there, and I would be able to say, okay, I want this as Hamburg, this is steaks, and I literally bought a whole cow at a time.
That's incredible.
And I had a whole freezer, and I would put one freezer, I had all my red meat, and then I have the chicken in the other freezer. I told you I'd buy 140 pounds at a time. So it was a lot cheaper than going to the grocery store, and the grocery store meats aren't so great. Mm-hmm. And that's how I sat home and I cooked and trained. And I mean, I literally ate, slept, and trained. That's all I did.
Man, what made you finally decide it was time to move out west?
Well, Joe pushed me.
Yeah.
Said, I want you closer to the books. I want to be able to shoot year round. And I moved to Orange County, California in 2099. And he gave me a raise to move out there. And let's put it this way, I woke up with a smile on my face every day after that. My career literally went, by this time I was a pro, and I just finished my first Mr. Olympia. It was 99. It was at Mandalay Bay here. It was in Las Vegas. First year they had it in Vegas. So I was second to last. There was 16 guys in the show. I finished 15th. And literally, when I moved to California 6 months later, I won my first pro show, Night of Champions in 2000, and then I got 8th in the Olympia after that. And then the next year I got second.
Which is, you probably should have won that next year.
Yes, 2001 was a close, but literally my career, I talk about the success as an amateur. Like, I turned pro my first attempt. But then I got into the pros, and it was like, man, these guys are a lot older than me, right?
Yeah.
I was one of the youngest guys of all time, right? To turn pro at that level. And then I had to wait to really kind of build up. So by the time I was 25, I was on Olympia stage. And, 26, I was, 8th. And then by the time I was 27th, I was controversially losing a second place to Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah. Well, I think that hindsight's such a beautiful thing because you can look back now with the benefit of hindsight and go, man, if this thing hadn't happened with Joe Weider and I hadn't moved to California and then this, it's really amazing seeing that these moments in your life have shaped the person that you are now.
Yeah, and I was scared, man, to move away from my family. I grew up in a super small town. I mentioned I have a large family. So I was like, man, what if I, there's always that fear, like, what if I fail?
Yeah.
And although I can sit here and, and someone like you can look and say, man, this guy's had a successful career, there's been a lot of down times too. I remember sitting in Mandalay Bay in 99 when I was second to last, and I looked amazing that year. And I remember sitting with my team and saying, am I just not good? Like, should I just quit? So I had that doubt. And then, of course, it was like, nope, I'm not going to quit. You wake up a few days later, you have some meals and, you have some cheap food or whatever. And you're back to the drawing board, and then you go and win a pro show and beat guys you never think you'd beat, in the pros. And then, of course, move halfway up in position for the next Olympia. Like, from that time forward, I've never really doubted myself, to be honest. It's the only time I ever doubted myself in my career was that 15th at the Olympia, because that's the worst I've ever done in a contest. I had won everything prior to that, and when I did qualify for my first Olympia, I was like 3rd and 4th in a pro show. But I was still so young. But now, you're getting up in age, and you're like, okay, Arnold was in his prime in his late 20s. Lee Haney retired at 31. A lot of greats were, Rich Gaspari was he was great at a young age, but you just didn't want to be that guy, like trying to beat your head against the wall and not having success.
Yeah.
And the money was coming. You asked me like how I financed and everything else. Like, I had a great contract, then I started getting guest appearances. As you move up in position, your notoriety in the magazine grows. When I moved there, Joe's like, I want to shoot year round. He did. Even in the off season, I stayed in great shape. And I was one of the most featured guest posers, at the time. So I was able to travel around and sell my merch and make a really solid living as a bodybuilder. So, but I had to work hard, right?
Yeah.
I had to continue. There was a lot of weekends away, a lot of plane flights, but it was a lot of the fans that gave me the motivation too, because I would have a lot of FaceTime with them, and I developed a huge fan base.
Yeah, and you were one of the few guys that were really merchandising things correctly.
Yes.
Or merchandising at all.
Yeah, and I give a lot of credit to, there's a guy, Chris Aceto. He was my trainer since the beginning. He lived in Maine. So he was only about 2 hours from me, and I actually started working with him as a teenager. He helped me for the teen nationals when I won that. And we worked together through my whole career. We did split for like 2 Olympias, but I, ended up going back to him for the last one. He taught me a lot about, how to build a great business in bodybuilding that can give financial return for a long time. And Joe taught me how to invest money. I moved to Las Vegas to invest in real estate. So, after 2001, I placed second. We mentioned that.
Yeah.
I was living in Orange County, and, California was it. But by that point, I was so established. Now I placed second in that Olympia that I did that year. I talked to my accountant at the time, and I'm like, after 9/11 tragedy, a lot of stuff like going a little sideways. People are scared. And I was doing really well financially by that point. I said, what do you think about Vegas? He's like, man, it's a great tax haven for you. I think you do great at 24-hour gyms. And I was able to come here and buy a lot of real estate and invest at the time when the market was soft. And I was able to, develop another way of revenue alongside my bodybuilding. And then, of course, the merchandising and, but the no state income tax was key for me.
Sure.
Getting out of California early. And I was still close enough, so I go back and forth. So I was still shooting a lot with the books. And, but it was kind of funny because they started coming to me.
That's when you've made it.
Yeah.
You get to a point where they're coming to you.
So they were coming to me to shoot.
Yeah.
And of course, Weider ended up selling around 2003 or 4 to the American media, which is National Enquirer and David Pecker. So it kind of shifted, and Joe slowly retired. He passed away some years ago, but he was a great, great mentor to me.
Yeah. You mentioned second at Olympia. Does coming second feel worse than winning Olympia feels good?
Not the first time or the second time. It feels amazing, actually, especially when you're almost dead last, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I think, as it started becoming more and more, I was second 4 times to Ronnie Coleman. I think the first 1 or 2 were okay, but then it was like, okay, I need to get over this hump because there's only one position more, and then you're the winner. So I was respectful, I was appreciative, but at the same time, I was like, damn, I want the title, right? And I was overcoming, who I consider the greatest bodybuilder of all time, Ronnie Coleman. So it wasn't like I was trying to beat some guy that it was controversially like he doesn't deserve it. Like, I think he clearly won many, right? He won 8 in a row. Even though 01, I was ahead on scorecards and everything else. He came in a little off that year, but he was a great challenger.
Yeah.
And to be second to him was an honor.
But what a difficult sport where it's subjective judging. It's like, in football, if your team has the ball go past the goal line more than my team, your team wins. In bodybuilding, it's subjective.
Is it a pageant? That's what I'm kind of... I hate the word pageant because I think of females.
Sure.
But it's kind of like, you go up there and how people judge bodybuilding, they look at the physique and how it flows and the condition and how you pose, how you stand out. And you have to have all those things. And the problem is like, you may look at it and the person next to you may have a different opinion on who should win. And the truth is like my demeanor on stage, I won over a lot of people because I was very, very humble. And I wasn't really, I didn't talk badly about any of the competitors. I was like very reserved. But at the same time, like, I let the body do the talking, right? It was a lot of muscle. You get up there and, I had my strong points where Ronnie had strong points. But, I knew how to kind of find his weaknesses too, because we all have weaknesses, and I would study. So it's just like, when you study game tape, right?
Yeah.
I would study these bodies. So I'd be like, okay, when this guy hits a front double, I'm going to pose this way, or side chest is going to be done this way, or abs and thighs, like that was a strong point for me, which Ronnie did not have strong abs and thighs. I had a really strong midsection, It's just from the back, he was very dominant. So it was just, it's very judgmental, but at the same time, like, to be the top 2, which was very consistently top 2, like it was him and I for a lot of years. I understand, it was a matter of opinions.
But there's also a thing in Mr. Olympia where once you've lost, you probably can't win again. So, but once you win, it's like you just keep winning.
Yeah, and I mean, I broke that trend. I mean,
you did.
I was, number 1, I defeated Ronnie Coleman on stage, which never really had been done. And then, I lost the title 2 years later in 2008 to Dexter Jackson. Came back the consecutive year and won probably my best of all time, won the title back, and, rewrote history again.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool, and I think it's still never been done, right?
Yeah.
There's been guys that attempted to come back to win it. And,
Is that the mental aspect of it?
It's the mental.
Yeah, because it's ironic because it's a physical sport.
It's more mental than it is physical.
And that's what's so crazy about it.
So when we go to the gym every day, I told you I eat, sleep, train. It sounds very simple, but there's actually a lot of methodical thinking to what we do. So when I leave the gym the day prior, if I know like yesterday I did shoulders, if I do back today, when I left doing shoulders, on the ride home, I was already envisioning myself the next day, going through the workout for the next day. So I knew, okay, this is what I'm going to start with. This is what, I kind of knew like rep ranges and weights I was going to push. But you mentally prepare. So when you go in, it's almost like you're almost robotic and you know exactly what to do. But you also zone everything out. So I remember that I used to get people come up to me like, how do you train without a headset? Because I would train in the Vegas gyms, and I'm like, I don't even hear the music. I don't hear anything because I'm so zoned in. And I don't know if it's just person to person or if it takes a special kind, and that's what made me great at what I did is I was able to box everything out. And I was able to go in the gym and I was able to beat my body to the point where, you know, it was enough, and then get out and feed it. And then, you know, when you leave the gym, it's now resting and preparing the muscle that you tore up in order to do it all again, right? So you mentioned how many days a week do you train, right? I mentioned 5 days. I never trained like 5 days in a row and took weekends off or anything like that. I would train like on a 2-on, 1-off schedule. So after 2 days of hard training, my body needed a break, and that's when you're going to repair and grow the most. So I did that. I worked with all different schedules, all different body part groupings. I tried to focus on maybe one body part a day, but I would spend probably an hour to an hour and a half in the gym. And sometimes I do that twice a day. So if I did 2 body parts, I trained 2 different sessions, 5 hours apart, and then eat the food the rest of the time. And I mentioned the food in the beginning as crazy amounts, right? And it got more and more as I progressed and got bigger.
Sure.
So when I was buying a cow, I was 250 off season. I was competing at.
It's still so crazy that that's a
40.
sentence. When I was buying a cow.
And eventually, like, you know, you're eating 4 pounds of meat a day and, you know, 5 pounds of fish sometimes when I would eat fish on a diet, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of food.
And were you counting macros?
I was counting protein and carbs and fats. And I don't know this term macros to this day. It's so new because I hate that term kind of because everyone's like, what's your macros? And I'm like, listen, I eat 12 ounces of meat and 100 grams of carbs worth of rice. I didn't get that particular. You know, I didn't do like, what's your heart rate when you get on a step mill or anything like that. I didn't give a shit about that. You know, it was more just, okay, what do I need to do to keep my metabolism going? I've had to force feed every meal because I was only hungry for a couple meals a day. But I would eat 7 times a day. I would eat every 2 hours. Yeah. So my whole day was like, okay, what are you going to eat consistently? It's the same thing every day. The menu is the same, doesn't change. Some days I'd eat a little more or less, but it was very monotonous.
What is your job? So, you know, if your job is eating and training, and there's days when maybe you don't feel like going to your job, how do you force yourself?
You know what? You look in the mirror and you say, who am I? And the truth is I always was like a figurehead since the day I started, pretty much. I mean, being a great teenager and then being featured in Joe's books and then leaving magazines behind and transitioning to social media like 2012 and doing Instagram, shooting YouTube since 2008. And then, you know, media took over. So the magazines became a media outlet. So what you saw on paper became media. Yeah. And I had contracts with the media companies doing that kind of thing. So it was all about content. And still to this day, like, you know, I'm a 48-year-old guy that does TikTok videos, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. I do it all on a daily basis. And it's so crazy because, you know, you have different things for different outlets because it's different audiences. And one thing that the magazines taught me is how to be pretty decent, you know, in front of a camera or create content that, you know, will make people say, okay, I like this guy, you know? Yeah.
Did another Jay Cutler coming along help or hurt your brand?
I think it helped.
Yeah.
You know, in 2006 is when he got drafted.
Yeah.
He was playing at Vanderbilt, and it was kind of funny because I had JCutler.com since 2000. So that's where I was doing a lot of my merchandising. So, of course, when his name popped up, and my real name's Jason, by the way, so I changed it when I got into bodybuilding. I went to Jay. So if people from high school know me as Jason, or my mom always calls me Jason. But so he was drafted. So they're Googling Jay Cutler, and I was the biggest thing on the planet in the sport of bodybuilding at that time.
Quite literally.
Yeah. So it was funny because ESPN and Sports Illustrated, they would contact me a lot and compare. And, you know, he out of the gate, it was great. He went to the Broncos, right? And then of course, he went to the Bears, and not so well. He was performing, and of course, you know, Twitter would go off, and I know on Sundays how he was performing based
would-
on my Twitter.
They would
'cause
tag the Ron account.
They still to this day. If you said, okay, where do you see Jay Cutler the most? It's still at Mr. O. Jay Cutler is my Twitter account. And I don't think he has a Twitter, so anyone would just tag it.
Because they go to type in Jay Cutler, see a check mark, and go, that must be him.
It's all blue check marked. And I mean, remember I used to sit on Twitter every night and before Instagram, and I would talk on Twitter and just respond to fans and whatever. And then, he kind of, started performing on Sundays or Monday Night Football. And, we never had the chance to sit down and communicate. And
You
at some
haven't met
point,
him?
sometime we're going to. I know he's working on a podcast now, and we've had some discussions about sharing some time on the air. So I think it would be kind of cool because, I always say I'm the real Jay Cutler. Obviously, I'm older too, so.
Yeah, you were the first Jay Cutler.
Yeah, so the first. And, it's just a lot of similarities with that stuff.
That's so funny. I'd love to hear his take on things too, because I'm sure that messages for you get crossed for him too.
Yeah, when he was, I remember in Chicago one time I did a whole GNC tour, and I toured the country for like 6 months on a tour bus, and I did visits to all the military and GNCs. And I remember particularly because he played in Chicago, I had a huge lineup outside a GNC store. And I remember seeing guys coming with footballs and the jerseys because all they hear on the radio is like, Jay Cutler is going to be at this event this weekend.
Yeah.
And they don't think, they don't hear 4-time Mr. Olympia. They only hear Jay Cutler. They catch it. Oh, shoot, I'm going to go get a signed football or whatever.
Yeah.
And
did you sign some footballs?
no, I see people either walk away or, people would tell me in line, like this guy came and he thought it was Jay Cutler. And, to this day, like there's still some confusion. Like a lot of people will call, even when I call like my credit card company sometimes and stuff, and I'm dealing with like, is this like Jay Cutler, the bodybuilder, or, and then sometimes they ask if it's a football player. So I think it's kind of funny, but I get a lot of people that actually, I feel really a lot better than I did the past years because I'm way more recognized now than ever through social media, but there's not a lot of mistakes now when people say, are you the bodybuilder, when they hear my voice?
Yeah.
And maybe they've heard my videos enough, so I get a lot of recognition that way.
What's the meanest Jay Cutler tweet that you received?
Oh, it's just, they trashed. Sundays were just brutal sometimes,
That's so mean.
But, he was one of the highest paid, and I mean, I think he was very talented. I just think that it just never fit. There's certain, with team sports, that's what I hated about football is, you can do everything perfect, but one mistake by an individual, you can throw a game or whatever else. And our senior year, we were a really good football team, but we had a lot of talent. We lost a lot of games by like a point because of mistakes. And that's where I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not really interested in football. I'd rather do something individual. So when I found bodybuilding, like it was all you against you in the gym. And, it's just like any frustrations I had, I took out on the weights and I had success.
Yeah.
I couldn't blame anyone else but me when I got on stage and competing because I was the one doing the dieting and the training.
What do you think's the biggest life lesson that the gym teaches you?
Discipline, organization, commitment. There's so many things that the structure of gym training, having that workout every day schedule, knowing that you have to have meals to prepare for it, you have to have sleep to prepare for it, you have to have your mind in your muscle to have that connection and do repetitions and be able to constantly improve. It's such a great guideline for life and business. And, I've been so successful at a lot of things that I've done outside of bodybuilding because the structure that bodybuilding taught me. And it's really hard to explain because unless you work out and you have a routine and you're dedicated, like you wouldn't understand. But like I said, I walked in here and I told you the best part of my day is still training. And that means like, I could travel, I could go, to Rolling Stones recently or go to a Raiders football game or, travel to, the Maldives or whatever. All I want to do is work out. My first question when I go to these places, like, okay, where can I find a gym? Because I'm just a person, like some people would, they hit a bottle or they do other things. They go out and let loose or whatever. to, get that relief where I go into a gym and I sweat and I produce and I walk out of there and I feel like $1 million.
That's a pretty great thing to be addicted to.
Yes. But it's a little consuming sometimes. Like, it's like people say, why don't you take a day off? But the truth is I take 2 days off a week from weight training. But I still, I get up this morning, I did my cardio. Like today, I'm not going to train. And I got up and did stairs this morning for 30 minutes. So I meditate on my stairs. So what I do is I envision my day. And I kind of categorize the things that I have to do when I wake up during that cardio session. So I don't look on social media or I don't watch, videos or whatever. I actually use that time to really just get inside my head and say, okay, this is the plan for the day. This is how we're going to tackle it. But not stressed, but just have some organization so I can kind of plan out my day, and that kind of kicks off my day.
Yeah. And your focus in the gym it's unbelievable. What do you say about this generation now who are working out and then between every set
On their phones.
they're on their phone?
I'll tell you a story about when I started training. Of course, cell phones didn't really exist. It was the big, huge
big
phones.
brick phone.
I remember when I
phone.
bought, when I bought my first BMW, they had a phone in the middle.
car phone.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I'm rich.
With an antenna on top.
Yeah. So I remember pulling up in the gym parking lot here in Vegas, the Gold's gyms, which are now EOS Fitness. And I'd be on the phone and I'd say, okay, I'm going to be off my phone for the next hour and a half. And the phone would go in my car. I'd put it in the trunk or whatever. And I would have no phone in the gym. So if you said to me today, like social media exists, right? And a lot of the things that I do, you'll see if you followed me on a daily and saw my stories, I have some filming in the gym, which I still don't carry a phone on the floor. I actually have someone with me that shoots the videos and sends them to me after the workout because I need to focus on that, how crazy as it sounds being retired. But I would leave the phone behind. And then when they would shoot the DVDs, we shot DVDs, which was the early social media. Like I had a film guy come in and just trail me. And I used to tell him, don't talk to me. And I used to tell anyone that came and trained with me, no cell phones allowed. I'm not going to change your weights and I'm not going to spot you. So I wasn't the best training partner because I was so zoned in on what I was doing. And I said, listen, if you're going to train with me, you got to keep up somewhat. I'm not changing plates or anything else. So if I'm benching 315, you got to do 315 or, don't come train with me. So that's how I kind of and I was kind of a little rigid like that.
Yeah.
But remember, it was my profession. I was making a career of it, and it set me up for, what I do today.
Did you ever work out with The Rock?
We trained in the same gym. I'll tell you a cool story about Dwayne is in 2007, I was Mr. Olympia. There was a Gold's Gym on Flamingo Sand Hill at the time. It was very, very popular gym in bodybuilding. I remember I was in there and Dwayne came in. This is before he was really big. And he stopped and, we were talking and whatever. And, he was just happy to see me because he followed it.
Yeah, he loves bodybuilding.
Yes. So, that was the last time I had seen him. And fast forward to around 2014, I was working at Gold's Venice. And Dwayne came in. He had a hoodie on and he had his headset on. And he stopped and he saw me and he's like, man, what's up, Jay? It's been so long, whatever. And of course, his career was now sky high, right?
Yeah.
He said, the last time I saw you was at Gold's Gym on Flamingo Sand Hill. I said, how do you remember that? He's like, dude, I don't forget, and, it's just, he hasn't changed from day one. And, we never got to train together. And you see his social media, like he trains and
trains. It sounds like he trains the way you train.
He takes the gym with him.
He trains,
so
yes.
When he sets up for films.
And he trains alone.
They put a whole gym in for him.
Yeah, which is
and
insane.
he has this Iron Paradise. But, I love that dedication. But I think if you asked him the same question, like, what has it done for you? Like, it's just so much structure in your life. And obviously he has a family and, he has a lot of business ventures, right? But you see him put in the work, man, and it's just, why do people follow The Rock? He's just motivating, right?
Yeah.
So he's on obviously a bigger platform than me, but I think people in our industry appreciate what I do because they see that on a daily basis, even being, removed and not in a competitive mind. There's no like indication of like, hey, I'm coming back to the stage, even though people, I mean, you heard this guy that just stopped me out here. Are you going to compete in the Olympia this year? And I'm like, dude, I'm an old man, you know?
No, you're not. Do you have any residual effects from years and years and years of training?
I'm very, very fortunate that
Yeah.
you know, I feel I took very good care of my body. I did a lot of tissue work, and, you know, I talk about all the things that I did, you know, to make myself great with the nutrition and the training. But, you know, I spent 6 hours a week for my climb up since 99 with tissue work.
6 hours
Yes.
a week.
So I did a lot.
massages?
Yeah, massages, neuromuscular therapy, stretching. I actually had a reformer. I started doing Pilates before that was popular. I did dry needling. I did cupping before it even existed. But I did everything I possibly could for the long run. So I knew that, you know, to keep the tendons pliable, you know, to keep the muscle pliable is number one, because as you tear muscle, it gets harder. So when someone can dig into your, you know, your body with, you know, an elbow or whatever, usually it's like very hard, right? My muscles were always soft, so they were flexible. So a lot of nutrients, a lot of blood flow could, you know, during my training was able to happen. And for me, like, that really kept my body and my joints very safe from what most people endure. You know, you hear back pain, their hip flexors get too tight. I still stretch to this day. Like when I mentioned doing the cardio this morning, like I have a stretch machine at home. So like I'll stretch for like 30 minutes after doing this, after my body's warm, just to keep everything pliable. And that's the most important thing to me today, is to be able to do exactly what I did for the past 25 years as a pro, to be able to train without restriction. So there's not anything that I can't do. Like a lot of guys, as they get older, their shoulder joints wear out and they can't do a lot of stuff behind the head. Like I'm not in that position. And not to say I'm the smartest guy, but I did take the time, and it did cost me a fortune to do that. So every year I was winning the Olympia, you know, the prize money is not substantial, but I was spending every dollar to put back into my physique. You hear about the LeBron James and how much money he spends.
Yeah,
to
and
keep
Tom
himself.
Brady as well.
Yes, I did all those things.
Exactly what you're talking about here is like what Tom Brady's doing to, I mean, look at him. He's still playing. And
Yeah, I mean, I
still
think you have to,
unbelievable.
as you know, you progress into those years. I mean, listen, bodybuilders aren't supposed to be competitive into their 30s and 40s. I mean, it used to be a young game, right? It's just like athletics where, you know, you're at the end of the road. I mean, Arnold stepped away, you know, in his late 20s. Like I mentioned, Lee Haney, who won 8 times prior to Ronnie Coleman, he stepped away at 31. You know, Ronnie retired rather late, and he stayed in a little longer. But, you know, my goal was to get out by 30, you know, and unfortunately, you know, the big money didn't start coming until after 30. You know, I won my first at 33. And, you know, then I lost it a couple years later, and then I came back to win it 2 more times before I lost it again, and then basically stepped away shortly after that.
Yeah, what made you decide, okay, it's time to step away?
There was a guy, Phil Heath, that came up to beat me.
Yeah.
He won 7 times after me, but he was just genetically better than I was able to.
And you were able to see that and go, I can't beat it.
Yeah, the funny thing is like I found Phil Heath, you know, at a show as an amateur, and I
Yeah.
said, this kid's going to be Mr. Olympia. And I told everyone in the industry, some people believed it, some didn't. I mean, I ended up getting him, you know, ended up getting paid and able to support his bodybuilding career. And little did I know he'd come up and beat me, you know?
There's another situation in life where, like, if this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I was like the proud, you know, mentor
Yeah.
of this situation. And, you know, I knew he'd be as great. I thought he'd even finished with
Man,
10.
it's like the pupil beats the master.
Yeah, and I was okay with it. But, you know, I tore my bicep 3 weeks out from the competition that he beat me at. And I competed with a torn bicep. And I had to take a step back. It was the first injury I ever had. And I had to have surgery. I didn't have surgery until 6 months later because I had commitments. And that's what kind of kept me out of the surgery center, because I was doing guest appearances. But I competed with a torn arm, you know, and I was unable to hold the title. And next thing you know, I mean, I knew that reviewing the pictures after, I'm like, man, I can't compete with this, you know?
Yeah. What's the best advice you have for someone who's trying to get to where you were?
You know what? The positive mind is important, but realistic. So everything comes in steps. So I mentioned to you, like, I took steps to get to, the pros, starting as a teenager and worked my way up in levels, but, got to the Olympia stage, which is like the granddaddy of them all, right? And I worked my way up through that, and then, of course, I won a lot of shows on the way up, too. I won Arnold Schwarzenegger's show 3 years in a row, second most prestigious show, and I was placed in second. But the consistency matters, but you need to surround yourself with a positive environment. So I just think social media today is very difficult for a lot of people because people love to get on there and just criticize. We can sit here and, we could do this interview and some people would look at it and say, oh, it was a great interview. And some people just, because they want to say it, would say it's terrible, right? There's always opinions. And that's the problem with the internet and social media is everyone has a voice.
Yeah. I always say that it's a tool.
Yes.
A knife could be used to stab someone. A knife in the hands of a surgeon could also be used to save someone's life.
Of course, but you have to surround yourself with positivity and learn how to deflect. And I had a great team around me. I had a positive attitude. A lot of times, it's easy to talk badly about someone, but I love to give people praise too. If someone motivated me, it's I have to give the respect to that. And I'm just a positive person in that sense. So I try not to, let myself be brought down by the negative things. And listen, like I said, it's, you might look at my career and say, wow, he's had great success. But like I said, there was a lot of dark times too. And you have to know how to endure those.
Being such a positive person, do you have a favorite quote or a mantra that you go back to?
Listen, my quote is, to be a legend, you have to train like one. That's kind of like my motto for my...
It's amazing.
Because that's what I'm kind of known as, the legend, right? Which,
in
a sense, it makes you, okay, I'm a little older, you know what I mean, when you're called a legend. But, I say, to be a legend, you have to train like one, meaning you're not just going to be the average Joe going in the gym and training if you really want to solidify a position.
Yeah.
And a memory, and everything is about the legacy. And I never realized how important that was now. And I appreciate every year my career more and more as I continue to, succeed in life. And I'm starting to get accolades for that too, It's pretty incredible.
Well, and because every new bodybuilder that's coming up is going to be compared to you and to Ronnie and to Phil.
Pretty amazing.
And to Arnold and everybody else.
Yeah, but it's funny because they forget about the Arnold days and
the Arnold days look so different from your days.
And Frank Zanes and
Franco.
I remember, Franco and the guy.
Ferrigno.
This guy Chris Dickerson was the first one I ever saw. It's Samir Bannout. There's so many. Sergio Oliva. There's so many greats. But I was in the era of Dorian Yates was coming. Lee Haney retired the year I started. And
the fact that you guys competed against someone whose name was Flex, like Flex Wheeler, that's what an era.
Yeah, I remember meeting Flex for the first time when I was 19. And I remember walking in Gold's Gym Venice and, probably one of the greatest memories I have of being a bodybuilder is, I was able to attend the Mr. USA in 1993. I just won the teen nationals in June. And in August, we went out to Marina Del Rey and they had the Mr. USA there. And I walked in Gold's Gym Venice, man, and I saw those pictures on the wall of Schwarzenegger, and I saw Tommy Lee Jones, and I saw Ron Harper, who was playing for the Lakers at the time, and all these famous people. And Flex Wheeler was there, Paul Dillette was there, and Lou Ferrigno was there, and Carl Weathers was there from the Rocky films, and I remember just thinking, man, this is it. And that's when I really was I need to be here. But that was probably one of the greatest memories because I just couldn't stop training. I trained for 4 hours that day. And I remember Flex Wheeler said hello to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, Flex Wheeler said hello. I only known him as a figure in the books.
Yeah.
And just to see his physique in person, you wouldn't believe it. It was just incredible. And, still to this day, even achieving greater things in bodybuilding than he did, he's touted as probably having the greatest body of all time. He just never won the big one.
Yeah. I've loved this so much, Jay. I super appreciate you coming by and just sharing some of your wisdom with us.
I appreciate it.
I end every conversation with the same question because gratitude's so important to me. I start and end every day with gratitude. What are 3 things in your life that you're grateful for right now?
Definitely my family, my health, and just my happiness right now. I mean, I look back now and just like I've had so much support and so much success, and that I'm able to continue to motivate people every day. You know, I'm thankful for social media, you know, that it's given me an outlet to be able to correspond with people all over the world, especially during these times. It's amazing. And positivity is so important, like I said. And when you can follow someone with that positive mindset, you don't know what it does to people. I mean, you witnessed it. I mean, this guy is going to talk about meeting Jay Cutler and behind
the rest
the
of his
glass.
life.
And, you know, for me to go out and take a picture with him, it can change someone's lives. You know, he could be going through some things, and it's just the stories just never end. And I'm just thankful for that.
Yeah. I work out, you know, a decent amount, but would you do me the honor of flexing against me?
Of course, I'd love to.
Let's see. This is a normal person's arm compared to a Mr. Olympia arm. We'll do it to this camera right here. Your arm's going to eat my arm. Oh, no, you didn't need to zoom in. Come on.
That's about 3.5 inches smaller than it was at my peak, by the way. So that's about a 19-inch arm.
Oh, it's ridiculous, Jay.
So appreciate it so much, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you.